All right, back at it again. The Football Playbook here on this Football Friday affair, January 6, 2023, our 87th edition of the TFP with RIC. Make sure you smash that like button, and we're going to pull up our guy, Mike Gill, in just a second, but we have developing news here on the Damar Hamlin situation. He was able to speak to his teammates during a Friday team meeting. Cue up Gill, Tone, if you have them. At a press conference later in the day, Bills head coach Sean McDermott relayed some of what went on during the call. McDermott called it touching, amazing to see Hamlin after the entire week. The team, when he appeared on screen, apparently stood up and gave him a standing ovation. McDermott said that Hamlin flexed his muscles when he popped on the screen, gave a heart gesture with his hands, and said, "I love you, boys." McDermott said that Hamlin's progress over the last couple of days has been a release of pressure on the valve for the entire team and has made it much easier to put attention on the Sunday's matchup against the New England Patriots. And so that is the latest from Damar Hamlin. So buckle up. There's Mike Gill, instant reaction. Mike, where were you? Were you watching it live? What has the conversation been like on 97.3, the Sports Bash this week over there on ESPN Radio?
Yeah, man, I was watching it live, as many people were, and I can honestly say at the time I said, I don't know that I've ever seen anything like this. And what was really interesting, Rick, was in the world that we live in, this social media age, because the play seems so routine, he made a tackle, he got up. I think a lot of people didn't see it because what happens when a play is over, a lot of people look down at their phones. And so many people were texting me, what happened? What did I miss? And so I don't know how many people actually witnessed what happened in real time. And there was so much confusion of what was going on. And here we are a couple days later. It's miraculous where we're at, because on Tuesday, I just said, I don't know how the Buffalo Bills can get ready to play a game if they have no update or resolve. Now, at that point, we really didn't have any update or resolve. And quite frankly, I don't think we still have a reason as to why that happened in that moment. But things have taken just a dramatic shift for the better. The reaction's been all over the place in terms of now what, right? Now what, as you know, this is the society we live in. We have some resolve. I had a guy on my show on Wednesday, Joe Valerio, played in the NFL. He's a local guy, played for the Chiefs. He was blocking Dennis Byrd on the play where Byrd was paralyzed. He was the right tackle, and he told the story about that. And he said the difference is, I'm involved in the play. The difference is when you see, we see injuries all the time. There's some resolve. The guy gives the thumbs up. He waves. His fingers move. Something happens to let us know, all right, this did not happen on Monday night. And that was what made it so different and difficult.
Yeah, Dennis Byrd, what a reference. I had a chance to interview Mike Utley a couple years ago at the College Football Hall of Fame. We talk about thumbs up, and what an inspirational message and motivational man. And he has no regrets, by the way, in terms of playing the great game of football. And he's a firm believer in tackle football and youth sports, and really, really gave some great insight and perspective. But, I do remember Corey Stringer, not quite the same. It wasn't national primetime spotlight in front of millions of people. Apparently Pronger, the I think with the Red Wings, had something similar occur.
He's playing with the Blues.
Okay, and then I would say like Hank Gathers, Reggie Lewis. I know you remember those. So I think it's kind of in that stratosphere now. Luckily, hopefully, it sounds like with the breathing tube removed, this hopefully has a happier ending.
But even the Gathers situation, which I am old enough and I was watching that game, the game is going on. He scores on a dunk and an alley-oop. There was no hit. There was no anything. And about 10 seconds later, he just collapsed. He just went down, and he actually tried to get up. People forget he was, saying, I don't want to lay on the court here. And then shortly after, he stopped breathing, and they ended up canceling the rest of that tournament and allowed Loyola Marymount to go on to the tournament to represent the conference that year. So the NFL's in a similar situation here now with what do they do?
Talking to Mike Gill, 97.3 ESPN Radio, Broadcast of the Year nominee. Oh, by the way, already one-time winner of the Broadcast of the Year award, and always brings great insight and perspective. And I was curious, I know you were kind of beating around the Twitterverse with your opinions on this neutral site, the AFC playoff dilemma, the different scenarios. Mike, am I being insensitive where I say, you know what, we're bending over backwards now to create all these alternate scenarios? Like, why can't the Bills and the Bengals resume play here on Thursday, stagger their playoff game, let them play Monday night next week, and then everybody will be brought up to speed? I feel like we're putting ourselves through additional hula hoops and jumping through things that don't need to be done here. Like, just finish the game.
Either that or this. I mean, to me, the two easiest, cleanest options. Look, we have heard so much over the last couple of days about this brotherhood and fraternity. And part of that brotherhood and fraternity starts in training camp in July, where everybody has a common goal to get to the Super Bowl. And by doing it all the same way, we are all trying to get to this goal, this brotherhood, this 53 men coming together. To alter that plan, this doesn't have to be so hard. To me, there's two ways to finish this. You either play that game next week, push everything back a week. I don't know what that 1 week that they have open, why are they so protective of that week? Do the right thing, play the game so everything plays out right, and then pick up the playoffs and get them rolling. Or
hold on. Just for clarification, you're talking about the bye week before the Super Bowl. Let's get rid of that. Push the playoffs back a week.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. I mean, just play the Bills game with Cincinnati next Saturday or Sunday in a standalone game, and then start your playoff the following week in a wild card division championship Super Bowl with no week off before the Super Bowl. The other thing to me, and I think this is the easiest, if you don't want to play that game, you just don't want to push anything back, you've called that game a no contest. So the Bills will have one less game through no fault of their own. They have 3 losses. The Chiefs have 3 losses. Buffalo beat Kansas City. That is your first tiebreaker. Buffalo would be the 1 seed. Kansas City would be the 2 seed. I don't care.
But, if the Bengals beat the Bills, they would have beaten Kansas City and Buffalo.
Right, but that game is being a no contest. So you are just taking that out of the mix. But, all right, now Kansas City has 1 extra win, but they have the same amount of losses. You won. The first tiebreaker has always been head-to-head. In this situation, use the head-to-head. Buffalo, we are going to reward you for beating Kansas City. You're 1, Kansas City's 2, Cincinnati's 3.
I think what bothers me about it is the Bills and Bengals are both going to play this Sunday. Why? I get it. It was a tragic thing, but we're playing the other 271 games. If it wasn't maybe the most important game out of the 272, like, it has ramifications on the 1, 2, and 3 seed of the AFC. That's the problem.
Here's another thing, Rick. Let's say Buffalo lost this week. They play New England. New England needs to win this game. Let's say New England wins that game and Buffalo now has 4 losses. Cincinnati beats Baltimore. They now have the same record, and they have the same conference record, and now they don't have a head-to-head matchup. How do you break the tie for the 2 seed?
Well, and Cincinnati was winning that game too. Like, I don't think it should be a no contest. There's so many different ways.
That's tough. It was 7-3 in the first quarter.
But why should it automatically be a tie? Why should it be a forfeit? I just have a problem that we played the outcome of 271 games, and arguably the most important one of them all, we're not going to play. It doesn't sit well with me. And I just know that no matter what they decide, 50% of the people are going to be pissed off about it. But hey,
well,
we only got final thought.
Listen, when Hamlin's first question was, did we win the game? That tells you the mentality of the people involved. I think the players want to get the right resolve. They don't want some wonky, and this is why I say don't leave it in the hands of the NFL, because they're going to come up with something to try to make more money. Adding another playoff team so they can get another playoff game in is just another way to try to make money off of this situation.
That's what I mean. They're creating all this unnecessary bullshit. Like, we're going to create this extra game, add an extra playoff team. We're going to play all these neutral sites. Like, just finish the game. It'll be easier. It'll be less complex.
Yeah, there should be the whole neutral site thing. Buffalo beat Kansas City head-to-head. They should be the number 1 seed if they do not play. If they do not play that game, they both have 3 losses. Buffalo won the game head-to-head. There's your tiebreaker. I know it's Kansas City says, well, we won 1 extra game. Well, you played 1 extra game. That other game, through a tragic event, did not finish. You had a chance to beat Buffalo on the field. You did not do it. You have 3 losses. They have 3 losses. They're 1. You're 2. Let's go.
Yeah, and I think after that thriller of a year ago between the Bills and the Chiefs, that's why it's such a big effing deal. But, hey, anytime we got Mike Gill, it's a big effing deal on the Football Playbook. I want to talk some Eagles with you. The Saints game was a debacle. What an atrocious game plan for those of you who think I'm not criticizing the coaching staff enough. I thought Shane Steichen and Ric Serritella did a horrendous job of not getting Miles Sanders involved, putting too much on Gardner Minshew's plate. And, we'll just stick it on with offense first, Mike, in terms of the Saints game, your thoughts and impressions.
I thought it was, in all the years I've covered the Eagles, I've been around since about 2005 covering this team. I thought it was one of the worst performances by the coaching staff, period. To have Gardner Minshew out there with that game plan, he looked like he was prepared to be anywhere else but in that moment. And listen, that's a guy who you invested some money into because you wanted a top-flight backup quarterback. There's been whispers about, this was a game that maybe he could get a starting job because of. Last year, he went to the coach asking to take over the starting job based on one performance. And in that moment, he looked way unprepared. Is that on him as a player? No. We've seen him perform. Heck, he performed fine the week before. If you got that performance from him the week before against Dallas in the game against the Saints on Sunday, you win the game. He was ill-prepared because that game plan was not the right game plan for that guy. They should have turned around and handed the ball off and quick, short throws for that guy. It was one of the few times that I can remember, especially this season, where you just flat out said Sirianni and Steichen absolutely lost that coaching battle. I thought John Gannon got off to a slow start, first drive of the game, but he adjusted and made the proper moves. They have a bunch of sacks, 13 points. You give up 13 points in an NFL game, Rick, how many times do you win?
Yeah, and they did not adapt or adjust. And so, just a terrible performance. And Gardner Minshew, I don't know. I mean, it was almost like they didn't have the pulse of their own team because he looked like a deer in headlights to me. And I saw that early on. He was lacking the confidence. You could see it in his eyes. You could see it in his body language. Yet the coaching staff didn't pick up on that, Mike. I mean, I think Miles Sanders is really in the doghouse, and they're kind of like keeping it swept under the carpet and not really making it a public thing. To me, when I hear Miles Sanders after the game say, yo, my knee was fine, how'd it look to you? And then Ric Serritella stands up there and says, oh, no, he's hurt. We're managing that. I mean, give me a break.
12 for 61. He looked fine. And by the way, if he wasn't fine, Boston Scott looked okay, and Kenny Gainwell ripped off a nice touchdown run that got called back on a bogus holding call. So they had plenty of opportunities to run the football when things were not going well. It was evident that Gardner Minshew was off of his game. So get him, simplify things, lean on that. Last year when they played the Saints, if memory serves, I think they ran the ball against the Saints about 50 times in that game and absolutely just obliterated them up front. When the quarterback goes out on this team, your next best player is that offensive line. I know A.J. Brown's great and Smith is great, but when your quarterback is now limited, that takes away some of what they do. You now lean on that offensive line, and then you catch them napping with the 70-yard bomb to A.J. Brown. They had one offensive series where they looked like they started to get into a rhythm. The pass to Goddard, they got one I don't know what happened after that, but yeah, Gardner Minshew, I'm not blaming him. People want to, he's horrible. No, he is what he is. He is a backup quarterback who has the capability to win games. Look, if Jalen Hurts was hurt for a 5-6 game situation, you got Gardner Minshew. He's going to keep your season alive. You're not going to Dave Blau here. You're not going to Nate freaking Peterman. You got a guy who's capable to go 3-2, 2-3, and not ruin your season. Let's put in perspective what the backup quarterback's supposed to do. They're supposed to just kind of keep the season afloat. Well, they lost both games. And I think one of them is because the coaching staff just absolutely relied way too much on a player who's a backup, not a starter.
No, and I don't put the blame on Minshew. I expected more, but I don't blame him.
Agree.
And he's a backup for a reason, guys. You mentioned the offensive line, Mike.
Yeah, but you know what? Real quick on that, Rick.
Yeah.
There's a lot of people out there, a lot of Eagles fans who last year, when he beat up the Jets, we got a Minshew mania. He's got to replace Hurts. He's better than Hurts is. And then he has a good game against the Cowboys, 355 and 3 touchdowns. Ain't nothing to sneeze about. He had a big game in that game. And, I think people have to open their eyes sometimes that the guy that they were pounding the chest for is not always the right guy. Jalen Hurts obviously is the right guy.
I think the fans sometimes can get caught up in the box score and the stats look great, but when you really dissect it and break it all down, he had 3 turnovers in each of those 2 games. On top of it, more false starts, more, cadence issues. Again, the coaching staff acted as if it wasn't an issue. I think you got to keep an eye on that. Now you got Hurts back there, but I want to ask you about the offensive line because I'm operating under the impression that Lane Johnson most likely isn't going to be able to go. I know he's going to give it a shot. He's going to give it a go. I understand the dude is tough as nails. I expect him to give it every chance to go, but quite frankly, I'm preparing for the worst, hoping for the best. Now, there are some out there who believe the best starting 5 unit involves Mailata at right tackle and Dillard at left tackle.
Yeah.
The one Barrett Brooks was on here earlier on this network saying Driscoll is a liability in pass coverage, and he would like to see Dillard at left and Mailata at right. And shame on the Eagles if they know Lane Johnson is less than a 50-50 shot. For them not to adapt and adjust going into the playoffs will be shame on the coaching staff. But are you in agreement? Did you see enough from Driscoll this week that you're confident to trot out that starting unit again? Or should they find out and move some guys around and test it out before they get into the playoffs?
Yeah, no, I said 2 weeks ago when the Johnson news came out, I would have gone with Mailata at right, Dillard at left. Look, people don't like Dillard. It's ill-timed. I mean, the guy had that one night where he played right tackle. He was abysmal. Any other time he has played his natural spot at left tackle, he has been a more than serviceable left tackle. He would start for probably 20 teams in this league as a left tackle. Mailata is more than capable to make the switch to right. And then listen, the big thing we constantly hear is, well, they don't like to move guys and then have to shift them again. Jordan Mailata is more than capable of playing right tackle for a game or 2 and then having to go back to the left side if Lane Johnson is ready to go. You put your best 5 guys out there. Driscoll, look, I will say he's matched up with Cam Jordan, who's one of the better pass rushers, but I got to imagine, if he has to play a playoff game, the team you're going to play in the playoffs is going to have a player of that magnitude. So you put your best guys out there. Dillard at left and Mailata at right, to me, is the best. Put your best 5 guys out there. And you're not putting 5 guys, I'm not asking Seimala to go play tackle, something he hasn't done all year. I'm saying to Dillard, you're going to play left, a place you're most comfortable with. Mailata, we're going to ask you to play right, something you are pretty comfortable with. And that gives us our best 5 guys.
Yeah, it'll be surprising. And Steichen just simply said we felt more comfortable with Driscoll and kept it moving. I have a feeling we're going to see more of the same this week.
Well, they don't like to switch multiple guys. They have said this in the past. They don't want to change 2 positions on a line. They're more comfortable only having to make 1 change. So if you're changing Mailata from left to right and then Dillard from bench to left, you've now made 2 changes to the line as opposed to just Driscoll goes in That's only one change, and they
Yeah,
feel
but you
that
know what, Mike? Every week I hear about Statland University, how we cross-train pairs and a spare. Everybody's interchangeable. We practice them at multiple spots so that way we can move them around, and now they're scared to do it. It doesn't make sense to me.
I agree. Like, if these guys are and like Dillard's a tough one because Dillard is a talented left tackle. The problem is he can't play anywhere else. You drafted this guy in the first round, and you've essentially got a guy who could play one spot. He played right tackle one night. It was horrible. He complained about it. I mean, he essentially said, I don't like playing right tackle. I'm not good at it. I mean, it was a whole thing like 2 years ago. I did see him play a little guard the other day. He was playing left guard, I think, when Dickerson went out. So I guess he has gotten to the point. I talked to Trey Thomas on my show probably in the offseason, maybe last offseason, when they were talking about Jason Peters, switching from left side to right side or something to that effect. But he did say, hey, listen, playing on the left side the whole time and then switching to the other side, there is some challenges that go there. But I think Jordan Mailata has already illustrated that he can handle it. Maybe Dillard can't. Okay, play Dillard at left and play Mailata at right. Mailata doesn't know what he doesn't know. He's so green behind the ears. Just tell me where to play, man, and I'll do my best.
No, I agree with you. I'm curious then your perspective on the secondary unit on defense, because to me, that now is the troubling or concerning area of the defensive side. And Darius Slay has kind of looked mediocre here in the second half, Mike. I hate to say it. On top of that, I'm proceeding with caution on Avonte Maddox the same way I'm moving forward with Lane Johnson. Prepare for the worst, hope for the best. That tells me Josiah Scott or Chauncey Gardner-Johnson will be that playoff slot guy. Now, when Chauncey Gardner-Johnson comes back, are you in agreement? Like, keep Reed Blankenship at safety with Epps in the back and slide Chauncey to the slot? Or are you cool with Josiah Scott, who bounced back, I thought, this past week, but he has been somewhat of a roller coaster ride? How do you break down the secondary, specifically heading into the playoffs?
Well, I think what we saw from the Eagles in that game against the Bears, I think it was the last time we saw Avonte Maddox, was they were using him in the slot and at safety. So they were kind of using him in both roles. I think that's what you're going to see with Chauncey Gardner-Johnson. They'll use him as the slot guy and in his safety spot when they kind of go out of that nickel look and they go with more of a base defense. I think Josiah Scott, I agree. They picked on him a lot in the Dallas game. I thought he played better last week. Blankenship, more of a run guy. I think the one guy, you talk about the secondary. Yeah, I think the secondary, Bradbury got smoked on a play. He looked horrible on that one play. I don't know if those guys are, slowing down a little bit. I do agree that Slay has been getting picked on a little bit more. They're not the most dominant crew that we saw that first 10, 12 games of the season, but that could be because of some of the pieces around them falling apart. But the linebackers in coverage are getting picked on a bunch here. Kaiser White, I'm a WVU guy. I love the signing of White. I think he's played great this year. You wonder, he's a guy who's been more of a part-time player in the past than a full-time starter. Is he starting to wear down a little bit? People are really attacking him in coverage a lot. And I don't know if that's a byproduct of Maddox being out, Blankenship being out there. Now you've got a couple of weaker parts. Overall, this defense is really dealing with some injury bug. We'll see. Getting Chauncey Gardner-Johnson back, though, should be a big help. Look, this guy still leads the league in interceptions, and he's missed 5 games.
Yeah, good point. Looking for a one-word answer because I want to sneak in another question. Josh Sweat down. Do you want to see Robert Quinn back and activated in the playoffs if he is healthy, or do you feel like I saw what I saw and I'm good there?
I don't get one word. Yeah, I'd take a shot. I'd play him in this game and see what he's got. I mean,
okay.
Just to say, the guy was hurt. Maybe that was something that was bothering him. But they need a body. They need a body this week.
Well, I really wanted to get your take on Hassan Reddick because he's can't come on like gangbusters down the stretch. And I know Merrill Reese asked the question yesterday. I haven't really given it much thought, but if you look at the numbers, and the Giants do have their backup offensive line in there this week, he could wind up leading the league in sacks, that Hassan Reddick. Do you put him in consideration for Defensive Player of the Year.
Yeah, in fact, somebody asked who should be the Defensive Player of the Month. There was a graphic on Twitter the other day, and there was 3 pictures, and then there was a blank or something to that effect. And I said, well, how's Reddick not in this? The guy in the month of December, he's got 6 sacks, 2 sacks in the last 3 games. I mean, whose numbers are better than that over the last couple of 4 weeks of the season? Yeah, he has been a disruptor. I asked a question the other day. If you could pick one defensive player to start your franchise with right now from the active players, he might even have to be I don't think anybody considers Parsons or Bosa, Sauce Gardner, maybe Quinnen Williams. But the way he's playing right now, he has completely changed. Think about this team is having a historic sack season. There's only about 4 teams in the history of the NFL who have had more sacks than this crew.
Oh yeah, no, I was talking about that earlier, and I was just going to bring up another good point, but I lost my train of thought. Tell the listening audience at home what you got going on there at the Sports Bash 97.3, 2 to 6 p.m. Eastern today. Buckle up.
Well, today, 3 o'clock, Sal Powell joins me every Friday for Sal Powell Friday. Jeff Mosher is my football at 4 today. Casey Joyner from The Athletic. We do one thought on every game at 5 o'clock. So he'll be joining me for that. And we'll be breaking it all down. I don't know that the Giants are going to play anybody. The Eagles won this game 48-22 4 weeks ago, and it feels like there's panic. This is why it shouldn't matter if you win by 40, by 2, by 1, by 60. They just crushed this team on the road, and everybody's in panic mode.
Against backups.
Yes.
He's Mike Gill, 97.3, the Sports Bash. We're so happy to have him here. Mike, thank you so much. We'll get you out of here on that. Salute to you. And
have a good weekend, guys.
All right, that's your Football Friday show. Thanks for all the listeners, all the glisteners, all the chat room people. Smash that like button one more time. Shout out to Tone DeShields II for holding it down on the producing side. Coach Flip for joining us here. Another week in the books, 87th episode of TFP with RIC. We'll come back on Monday.